Alright, welcome everyone to the fourth and final video in this table build. In this video we're starting off by making some apron supports, and then we're going to move on through some mock-up assemblies and getting the aprons laid out, legs laid out, and then we'll wrap it up with all the finishing details, so stay tuned. So a couple of the holes I drilled, one there and one over there, actually missed the grid work. I'm like, oh man, my marks, my measurements were a little off. And I was like, hey, wait, it's kind of like a stud in a wall. I wonder if my stud finder would work. Sure enough, it does. So it's kind of awesome, actually. You use a stud finder to find your grid work in your torsion box. Who'd have thought? So at this stage, I am trying to get the two table halves with a leaf in the middle all lined up. I previously had drilled some holes for alignment pins, some brass alignment pins, and you can see I'm struggling to get all three of them to engage, which actually happened with the two table halves as well. So I think one hole was a little off on each one of them. And so I struggled, and so what I did is I used a file to file off a little bit of material. This actually did not work that well because you end up scuffing the side of the table a bit. What does work really well is a little Dremel with a little cutoff wheel or a little grinding wheel, and you can really shave off the pin nicely without scraping the table. Once I was able to get the pins to fully seat and all the components like the two leaves and the two table halves, I'm going through here and fastening down the little lever locks that keep all the components together. With the cost of the alignment pins and the little alignment locks, about $65 from Osborne Wood Products. So I've just finished sanding all of the parts. I sanded everything with 120, then 180. I raised the grain with some water, a light amount of water, because this is veneer. I don't want the water to soak in and soften the glue, so just a little bit of water, wipe it down, make sure it's not pooling up anywhere. Excuse me. And then 180 again. So I've just finished sanding everything. Except for the extensions. I have to give them a quick sand because I'm going to paint those. So next up, we are going to start adding some color to these pieces. But before doing that, I got to get some stuff prepped. I'm planning on using a mixture of vinegar and steel wool to really darken up the walnuts. And with that, I don't want to spray that on all my stuff and my benches and things like that, because it will dye that wood as well. So we're going to lay a bunch of plastic down, and then we're going to have to start figuring out how we're going to kind of strategically place things, and then start adding some color. So let's do it. So for this project, I did do a number of stain samples before beginning. And ultimately, this is what the client landed on, was something very dark. Now it did pain me a bit, quite a bit, to do this. I would have preferred having something more natural and oil based to let all that beautiful rift sawn walnut stand out and kind of be the focal point. But this is what the client wanted, and of course the client is always right. The customer is always right. And in this specific instance, that client is my wife. So her opinion is important to my quality of life, you'd say. So this mixture of vinegar and steel wool, it reacts with the tannins in the walnut, and that's what makes this drastically dark color. It goes from that grayish brown to almost a black color with just one coat. I could have done more coats here, but it still leaves some variation in color, and so the next step in the finishing process is actually pretty important to try to make everything pretty consistent in color, which is adding an oil-based gel stain, which I use General Finishes Java gel stain. All right, so we've gotten the mixture of steel wool and vinegar applied and turned everything this nice black color. But since that is kind of what vinegar is kind of watery, there is a risk of it maybe loosening up some of the adhesive. And what we have here, if you hear this, solid. So I need to somehow adhere this back down to the leg. So I think what I'm gonna do is to take maybe a razor blade and make a small slit down this dark seam here, try to get some glue spread inside there, and then clamp it back down before we move on to the next step in finishing. So we are on the final phases of finishing. But I did run into an issue I want to talk about. One early morning before the kids got up, I was going to apply some polyurethane to the stained surfaces. And so the stain was oil-based, this Java gel stain. And I was gonna put, like I said, water-based polyurethane over top of that, which is generally a no-no. You don't put water over oil, but I've done it probably half a dozen times on pieces of furniture and some woodwork in our own house without issue. Just make sure the oil has like a week to dry and you're kind of wiping off any excess that's coming to the surface. Seems to be fine. Well, not this time. I used a different water-based polyurethane product and it was very sensitive to that oil being underneath. And it caused, as soon as I sprayed it on there and it was, it was wet, but then once it started to dry, it was like almost a whitish, semi-transparent white color. I think it's referred to as blushing. And so I had to sand all that water-based finish off without getting too deep and getting the stain off. Now, luckily, I had only put polyurethane on the bottom of the tops and the legs, so I didn't have to redo everything, or I should say sand everything, just those surfaces. I was able to sand that down and successfully apply a oil-based polyurethane over top of that. So I've switched to Armor Seal here, satin, just applying it by hand, which is it is a great product. The oil is usually more durable than water. The problem that I have is I cannot usually get a consistent sheen and coating with the hand application of the oil-based poly. So I always struggle in that last coat getting to look right. But anyway, this is what we're gonna use. And so I've got a coat of oil on the top of the tabletops. There's of course a coat on the bottom, the legs, everything's got a coat of oil on it. And so now I'm gonna go through and give it a light scuff sand, and then we're going to apply the next coat of oil. So here we go. So at this stage, I've applied 4 coats of the oil-based poly on everything, and now I've let that dry for a few days, and now I'm out here giving it a quick rub down with some 4/0 steel wool and a little bit of rubbing lubricant from Mohawk. I think it's just soap and water, but yeah, gives a little reduces the surface friction a little bit. I later realized that I did not intend to have the washers in this screw joint, so I ended up taking these back out and just using the screws without the washers, which was totally fine. I forgot the washers are intended for the joint between the angle brace and the legs, and those are put in with just some 1/4 bolts, and then, like I said, these washers. But that is not done until the table is inside the house in its final location. One of the number of issues I ran into with this table build was some of the holes I pre-drilled for the table slide in my shop did not line up when I went to do the final assembly, so I had to re-drill those. And here I am assembling the legs to the table. I got help there from my little guy. He's making sure the table doesn't fly away on me, which is nice. And then applying some felt to the bottom of the legs. So after enlisting help from all the family members, we got the last 2 table legs installed and bolted in place, and it's starting to look like a table. I later installed the leaves after maybe the next day or something like that, but this is how it all turned out. I think it turned out pretty wonderful, actually. I like the way the proportion of the legs versus the tabletop and the aprons. I like the chamfer details on the legs and the aprons as well. It's definitely not perfect, but that's okay. That's why we do this stuff, these new types of construction methods, and for our own personal projects, so you get to learn and apply it to your next one. So thank you for watching and following along. If you like the content, give it a thumbs up. If you want to catch my future content, make sure to subscribe, and have a good one.